Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Well, 3 weeks into the lockdown and I think we're all going a bit loopy, so I thought it was high time for a ramble. Let's go to the intro and then we'll start. Okay, welcome back. What's this all about, you might be asking? Well, I've just been asking myself the same question. I just walked up to my office to do this video, and I found this sitting on my keyboard. Easter's coming up, and my wife tends to put little chickens and yellow ducks all over the house just to remind me Easter's coming up, so don't worry, I haven't gone out and bought that myself. So it's been a strange time, hasn't it? I hope everyone's doing well out there. We're still okay. And I have to say, living in a small village, I think we are isolated automatically because I've not actually heard of anybody in the village getting this thing that's going around. But life is strange. I'm used to working 50, 60-hour weeks and spending a lot of time away from home, so being stuck at home has been unusual. I've quite enjoyed it, but I have to say that the novelty is starting to wear off now. And I can tell that's starting to happen because for the first few days it was a nice rest. After that, I've been finding things to do. And I've been finding things to do in Linux and with my hardware setup. So I thought, well, you know, it's 8 videos since my last ramble, and I know that the rambles aren't hugely popular out there. They probably get less views than anything I produce, but I quite enjoy doing them, and it sort of consolidates the things in my head before I move on to the next stage. Whilst I'm here, what I will do right at the beginning, because these rambles are the sort of conversation that I don't pre-plan it in any way. I wind my way through a series of topics that have been going through my head. And given that, I'll put up the timings of the different topics I cover at the beginning of this video. So if you want to just go to a particular thing, you can. So as far as the channel is concerned, let's start with a little bit of a channel update. I can't really believe the growth. It took the first 7 or 8 months to crawl slowly up to around 2,000 subscribers. And one of the things that really kind of pushed me over the 2,000 was the review I did of Linux Mint, which is now at nearly 50,000 views. Hard to think. And that's great, and I fully expected it to slow down after Christmas and to just creep up, and I thought, well, if we get to 5,000 subs within, I don't know, December 2020, I'll be quite pleased. We've done really well. We're less than 300 subs away now from 5,000, so I'm a little bit stunned, to be honest, especially as this is a channel that has tended to only produce a video a week because that's the time that I've had available. I haven't been able to do any live shows, and there is a reason for that. I was asked about it this week again. And I did a bit of a test with a private video going live. And the problem I have is my upload speed is around 1 meg. One of the disadvantages of living in a little village. I get a 30 meg-ish download speed, but 1 meg upload, it's just not going to do it. It's going to be painful. So I'm going to stick to the pre-recorded stuff. But the channel's doing well. So once again, thanks very much for that. I've done a little bit of playing around with various things over the last few weeks, and I'm going probably to start with a little bit of news about some changes I've done to the hardware, trying to get my setup here working properly. I've still not moved into the new cabin in the garden because that would take quite a lot of money to set up, and given the current situation, I'm loath to spend that at the moment. But I have gone out there and I've sorted a few bits and pieces out. It started off before the lockdown, upgrading the mic to this dynamic mic, and I've been pretty pleased at the quality that I've had out of this. Condenser mics are great because they pick up everything, and generally speaking, you don't have to worry too much about the volume, and I have to use a little inline preamp with this to give it a bit of a boost so it's usable. But living in a household, not being in a studio where there's no noise and you can control it, with washing machines going constantly downstairs and with kids playing outside and cars and lorries passing, the dynamic mic has made a big difference. So that was a really great purchase. What else have I done? Right, I was, as you all know, let me just go to the split screen here. As you all know, those of you who have been with me for a while, I don't use any fancy kit really for this channel. The core of everything I'm doing is one of these little Intel NUCs, tiny little box, no size at all really. A couple of packs of cards is about the size of it. i5 processor, 16 gig of RAM, onboard graphics, woof, it works. And I've had dual screens set up with this. And one of the screens that I had was not a full HD screen. It was an old Dell screen that I've had for over 10 years. And it was 1680 by 1050. And I've been working with that. I had that plugged into, I don't know whether, if I can show you the ports on here. I had that plugged into the USB-C port, which you can actually plug in and use for a screen. And I had my main screen, my Acer HD screen, plugged into the HDMI screen. I wanted to upgrade, so I at least had a couple of 24-inch screens that were both HD. So I did that recently, and I bought a relatively cheap screen, a Zenta screen. I'm sure if you're a gamer, it doesn't come up to scratch, but for me, it's great. And I wanted to see whether or not this USB-C port could actually support two screens. The claims are that it can support up to 3. But it can only support up to 3 if you daisy chain 3 screens. So one lead coming from the USB-C port into a display port on screen 1, then daisy chaining screen 1 to screen 2, daisy chaining screen 2 to screen 3. Okay, well, that's great in theory. The problem is there's not many bog standard monitors out there that have the facility to do that daisy chaining, because they don't have display ports. They have VGA, DVI, or HDMI. So how was I going to do this? Well, what have I just done? I bought myself one of these. An MST hub by StarTech. There's not a lot of these about actually, but I keep hearing recommendations from this. And what I've done is I've plugged this direct into the USB-C port, and then I have both my screens running from their HDMI ports plugged into this. It doesn't claim to support Linux when you go on their website. It does. It works fine. I've tested it on a few distros, my Debian distro, and this one, I'm in Arch at the moment, and it works absolutely fine. It's come down in price recently on Amazon. It was £116, and I couldn't really justify the expense. So, but it's come down to £68, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I'm really quite happy with it. So that was one of the the things that I've done recently. I've upgraded my screens, and I've got this little MST port. Theoretically, the HDMI port is still free, so I could plug a third screen into it, and I may well do that with the Dell monitor, but I'm going to need some sort of stand bracket because it's going to have to go above the other two. I just haven't got room to have 3 screens diagonally at the moment. What else have I done? Oh, yeah. The thing about the Intel NUC, I mean, it's a tiny little box, and it's not as if you can stack it out with lots of different SSDs. So I've been using one of these, which is an SSD dock, for want of a better word. And this was by Orico. I had a little 2-port one originally, and I expanded it into a 4-port one. These are essentially cloning machines where if you wanted to clone a drive, you just put one in, put the other drive in, press the switch, and off it goes. And they do work well. What I've been finding, though, is over the months when I boot my machine, it's not always picking up the SSDs that are in these slots. And it's been getting worse and worse. So I thought, well, perhaps it's time to do an upgrade and get something a bit better, because this wasn't very expensive, and I suppose you get what you pay for. So what I've just upgraded to, if I can take you to that, is I've stuck with StarTech, and I've bought one of these hubs. It's only a dual port, but that's not really a problem. I'm noticing with this, it picks every SSD up immediately on booting, and they've got clips when you put in your SSDs, and it holds them firmly, and it just seems so much more robust. So yeah, that's what I've been doing hardware wise. I'm using Arch most of the time at the moment, and with the occasional little playback in Debian, but Debian tends to have been my workhorse, and I've not been doing much work. I tend to have Arch running on one of the SSDs that's plugged in via USB 3, and I have to say, you can't tell the difference. If anybody has got a system that they need to expand, and they want a quick and easy way to expand, I'd certainly recommend these two little things. Right, okay, so that's the hardware side of things, what I've done as far as my setup is concerned. If anybody is interested in these things, I have included some links in the video information. Amazon keeps sending me emails because I opened up an affiliate account months ago and I've never used it. So I've put some affiliate links there. Hey, fill your boots if you want to give it a go. Okay, so on to the next subject. ThinkPads. I've been a ThinkPad fan for... I think I bought my first one in 2006. And apart from laptops that I've had for work, I mean, I've got a Surface Book for work at the moment, my personal laptop has been a ThinkPad. And I use a ThinkPad for a number of reasons. One, in terms of Linux compatibility, they're second to none. Second, they're really robust. I've dropped a few over the years, and the damage has been minimal. Thirdly, I'm a tinkerer, and the old ThinkPads especially were very much made to be taken apart and to be upgraded, and they made it easy. I took it as a hobby a few years ago, and I started buying old ThinkPads on eBay and doing them up. The classic ones, I mean, my favourites are the T-Series and the X-Series. And I've always got a range of different ThinkPads here. I haven't done a lot of hardware tinkering for a while, but I have a T430 down here under the table, which works fine, but the fan is just about to go. I do have a fan and I need to get into that machine, and I need to fit the new fan and sort out some more thermal gunk on the CPU, etc. But it's a solid machine, and once I've done that, I'll probably sell it. I've done quite a lot of upgrades to T430s, T420s, and X230s, and in fact the last X230 I sold, I've been kicking myself for selling it. I'd put an IPS screen in it. It was running 16 gig of RAM. I had an SSD in it, and I also, one of the things I like about the older ThinkPads, you can actually fit a little mSATA SSD under the keyboard as well. So it's essentially running 2 drives. And it was superb, but I wanted something new. So I sold it on eBay, and I bought myself this thing. Second-hand, but pretty new in terms of ThinkPads. And this is an X260. Not impressed. And I'm not impressed for a few reasons, really. I mean, it's a fine laptop. There's nothing wrong with it, unless you're a tinkerer. First thing I did when I got it was I wanted to upgrade the spinny hard drive to an SSD, and I wanted to upgrade the memory. Well, unlike the T430 and the X230, etc., which are dead easy to pull off panels and you just get it done, 10-minute job, with the X260 you have to take the back off, and it's held on by these tiny little plastic clips. And I did it really carefully, but I snapped some of the clips while I was doing it. It doesn't make a huge difference. You screw it back on, it all worked. But it was just, once I got that off, it was the build quality. The build quality of the newer ThinkPads has plummeted compared to the older ones. So I've recently made a purchase. It hasn't arrived yet. I'm expecting it Monday or Tuesday. And I've picked up myself an X220. I've never had a 220 before. I've only had 230s. But they're essentially the same as the 230s, but they don't have USB 3. Still an i5 processor, so more than fast enough, and you can still upgrade them to 16 gig of RAM. What this does have, though, is a proper keyboard. One of the old IBM-style keyboards. And they just feel so much more comfortable to use. Back in the day, I used to have a T61, and I just love the old IBM keyboards compared to the, I don't know what you'd call them, the chiclet style. So that's arriving soon, and the X260 is going to get moved on, I think. I'll obviously get into upgrade mode. I don't know whether I'll do a video on that because I haven't really got the cameras to show me doing it, but the first thing I'm going to do is put an SSD in it. I'm going to upgrade the RAM. The X220 can take 16 gig of RAM, even though the spec sheet says technically 8 gig, but they can take 16 gig. I'm going to install a modded BIOS on it to remove Lenovo's whitelist so I can upgrade the wireless card. I will probably also fit an IPS screen because the TN screens that they come with as standard are pretty poor. But I'm quite looking forward to it. And the solid as the day is long, and I'm going to build that as my main laptop. I've been using the X260 as the main laptop when I'm at home, whereas my X131E is my takeaway to hotels laptop. And what am I going to put on it? Well, the X260's got Slackware on. And I've been wondering whether or not just to stick with Slackware and to put Slackware on the 220, and I may well do it. I haven't talked about Slackware since from when the channel first started, and I did a few videos on installing Slackware current from the live ISO image that's produced by Alien Bob. But I actually use the stable version of Slackware on my X260. And I don't know. I really like Slackware. It'll always have a place in my heart. It doesn't do dependency checking, but that's less of a problem than you might imagine. I'm just getting a bit impatient. Slackware 14.2 came out years ago, and I'm waiting for a new stable release to come out. So I may or may not install Slackware on the X220. Perhaps some of you'd be interested in me seeing not an X220, a Slackware install from scratch. Let me know in the comments. So I'm wrangling with that. Anyway, it's either going to be Slackware or it's going to be Arch. Probably an Archway install that I do on it. So I'm getting back into playing with hardware, which is really good. What else have I been doing? Yep. So, I've also been veering away using window managers. Whereas Mate was my preferred desktop, I was really impressed with OpenBox as a floating window manager, and so impressed with it, in fact, that I don't necessarily see the need to run a desktop environment anymore. And as you know, I put Arch Labs on my little X131E, and I'm very happy with that. And BSP WM, I'm still running in it. I'm still living in it. We're nearly at 3 weeks now I've been living in it. I've started to get used to it, and I'm liking it. I'll be honest. Judging by the views that I get when I do something on a window manager compared to a distro review, you guys out there like the distro reviews. I enjoy doing them, but some of my videos are always going to be a little bit more of, what I've been doing, and I don't worry too much about the views. If it's something I've been doing and I found interesting, I'll put it up as a reference material, and I'll use it as much as anybody else in the future. So it's always going to be a mixture, this channel. I'll certainly still always do distro reviews because I find it interesting what's coming out all the time. But as I play with different things, I'll probably showcase those as well. So BSPWM, will I stick to it as my main window manager, or will I likely go back to OpenBox? I'm in two minds, I don't know. And when it comes to a laptop, I'm going to stay with floating, but we'll see how things go. What else I've been doing? Yeah, with going over to the tiling window managers, I've also been playing, as you know, with the terminal a little bit more than normal. I've installed NeoMut for email, and that was more an exercise in, can I? Can I do it? Can I set it up? And I did. Will I use it? Nah, not a chance. I'll carry on using Thunderbird. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I've always used Nano when I've had to edit text files. I'm currently forcing myself to use Vim. I am getting used to Vim. I've got a theme on it that I quite like. I'm still unsure of what plugins, if any, might be useful for me. I'm not a programmer. The most I'm going to do is edit some bash scripts or text files. So maybe some of you out there could recommend something for me to have a look at as far as the plugin's concerned, even if it's just a bit of bling. I'm all up for playing with these things at the moment. So in terms of the learning experience, this lockdown's been quite good because I've gone into all sorts of different areas that I hadn't previously gone. And in relation to that, what have I actually been watching myself on YouTube to educate myself? Well, I've come across, or I've revisited channels I was perhaps aware of that I haven't really gone into detail on. Let me go to the combined screen. First one, Luke Smith's channel. A lot of what he does is a little bit beyond me, a little bit too techie for me, but I've enjoyed watching some of what he's been doing. Recently, he seems to have been producing a lot more after a little bit of a hiatus, and I do find his channel quite watchable now. It's very much a channel for, it's very geeky, you know, but hey, I consider myself a bit of a geek, not as technical as he is by any stretch of the imagination, but I've enjoyed watching him. I've also discovered a channel by Brodie Robertson, and, oops, let me just hit got it. And again, quite geeky. He uses BSPWM, and I've learnt quite a lot just watching some of the things that he's done. So YouTube's, what I love about it is everything is on there. You want to know something, there are channels out there. In relation to that, coming back to the ThinkPads, what have I been looking at? Well, there's a couple of random channels if you're interested in looking at old ThinkPads and getting them back up to scratch. Sebi's Random Tech. This is a channel that I've been watching off and on for a while now, and he has some really interesting articles on breaking down ThinkPads and upgrading them. So if you want to, or if you're interested in doing that, I'd certainly recommend looking at his channel. There's also a really, well, random channel, Panorama Circle. I'm sure it used to be called Panorama as a Circle. He has some fascinating videos on refurbishing old ThinkPads, with things like using hand cream on the surface of old ThinkPads and using these magic sponges to get rid of all the marks and bring them up all looking shiny and nice again. And yeah, I find them fascinating to watch as well. So last but not least, I've done quite a few distro reviews recently, and I've tried to find the quirky ones. And believe me, I've got some more quirky ones to come this week. But a few weeks back, and in fact over the last couple of months, one of the distros that I've looked at was Hackman Linux, Ben Fitzpatrick's baby. And I had a quick look at it when he did a Unity respin based on Ubuntu. And then a few weeks ago, he went back to Arch and did an updated respin. Well, he spoke to me a few days ago and he said, hey, myself and Silent Robot, who's the developer of Salient OS, perhaps a distro I need to look at because I haven't looked at that yet, have been completely revamping and updating Hackman. And we've called it something different. We've called it Storm OS. Can you take a look at it? So I did. I'm not going to do another full distro review because you've seen Ben's work already. But just moving over, let me just move to my desk. You'll see in front of you Storm OS. It's based on Arch. And it's using the XFCE desktop environment, but clearly it's heavily customized. It's got some new wallpapers, and I believe some more are to be added. It's got some custom bash aliases, some various themes and icons included, and it's basically had a complete overhaul since a Hackman. And first impressions are, it's a lovely looking desktop. What Ben did say when I asked, what have you actually done to this? He said, well, complete overhaul under the hood, really, but for the user, he's created some useful aliases that are already there in the bash rc file. He's created some new wallpapers. Let's have a look at the wallpapers that he's created. Okay, so there's obviously the Storm OS one here. Let's just scale that. That's probably going to be better. Or stretch it. No. Center. There we are. We're going to center that. Okay, that's nice and smart. What's this one? It's too small as it stands. Perhaps if we stretch it. No, it looks a bit fuzzy. Perhaps if we scale it. No. What about if we zoom it? Okay. Not so great. Right. Some of these look fine. Some of them perhaps need a little bit more work. They're not all coming up quite as I would like them on a 1080 screen. So watch this space, I think is the best thing to say. But I think the default wallpaper looks great. And there's a couple of extras there. Let's see if that needs to be scaled. No. Okay. And you have, of course, got your old Star Wars Hackman stuff there. So given that, it's probably still a bit of a work in progress that needs to be sorted out. But these are minor things, wallpaper. What else have we got? Well, we have a nice smart menu up in the left. I see we're using the Thunar file manager. We've got everything that was there before. The GIMP installed by default. Firefox and Chrome and Opera Beta. You've already got Steam installed. Telegram. UGET. What else? Audacity, OBS, Simple Screen Recorder, VLC. Interestingly enough, no Office Suite, although I presume Ben is just trying to keep the size down, so it's got Abbey Word on at the moment. And, yeah, the nice menu. Is that the Whisker menu? Yeah, it is. And for gamers, what I find really quite interesting is it's got the Optimus Manager for NVIDIA Optimus, which, honestly, I had all sorts of trouble on the T430S with NVIDIA Optimus, but it's got it pre-installed. Screenshot tool, OBS, obviously. What else have we got there? We said Steam. Lutris is already installed by default. And Discord. So it's pretty much ready to go. And you've got all your standard settings there. It's a nice looking distro. And I know how much work Ben puts into this, so I did just want to give it a little bit of a showcase. He's also included a whole range of different themes and icons. Teller Black Dark. I've never heard of it, but it actually looks quite nice from what I'm seeing. So, Storm OS. I will include links in the video description if you want to download this. So Silent Robot and Ben Fitzpatrick have done a fine job in cleaning it up. I know it's taken Ben hours and hours to get this just how he wants it, and I'm sure there'll be further updates. But if you want an XFCE desktop using the Arch system, you could certainly choose a lot worse. And I quite like the idea that this is a small distro that is put together with love and real attention, and it's been somebody's passion, which is always great to see. Okay, so I know this has gone on for a while, so that's probably long enough for this ramble, and we'll get back into the normal set of videos next week. But I thought just a little bit of going in and out of the things that I've been doing and looking at over the last week or so might be of interest. It puts everything in place and we can move forward from here. I've still got in my mind that I want to look at some out there distros that not many people have heard of. Makulu was one that seems to have been quite popular. And there's a few others that I've got in mind. Some of them good and some of them perhaps not so good. I'm also looking at perhaps focusing on some of the tiny distros that, I don't mean in terms of popularity, although most of them fall into that category as well, but in terms of those ones that you can fit onto 100 meg and generally were developed so you can just stick them on a USB stick and take them with you wherever. So we'll have a look at some of them and see how good they are. But for now, I think this will do for this ramble. Don't forget, if you want to join me on Library, please do so. And if you want to join our little OldTechBloke Facebook group, you're also very welcome. Guys, that's it for now. Enjoy your Saturday. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks very much for watching.